Welcome to the Life Coach Lounge. I'm Angela.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Emily.
This isn't a podcast for coaches. It's for you, for real people navigating real life. It's lighthearted, it's deep, and it's grounded in faith, friendship, and purpose.
And once a month, you can join us in our virtual Life Coach Lounge on Zoom.
So pull up a seat. The Life Coach Lounge is open.
Welcome back to the Life Coach Lounge. Today's episode is going to be fun. Like, wait, what? What did they say? Kind of fun. We're talking about everyday phrases we all say, but we might not know what they mean or where they came from. Some of these are wild, some are kind of dark or have surprising origins. So get ready to learn something new. Before we get into today's episode, I just have to say how much fun we had in our most recent virtual lounge. The virtual lounge is a monthly 1-hour Zoom call where we interact with our listeners in real time. Join our private Facebook group, The Life Coach Lounge, for all the details. We always enjoy hearing from our listeners and answering any questions you might have about one-on-one coaching or any of the topics we discuss here. Please reach out anytime. Search the Life Coach Lounge on social media platforms, or you can easily find all of our links in the podcast show notes. Okay, so how did we land on today's topic? We mention coaching phrases and terms frequently here on the podcast. Terms like limiting beliefs, quiet your inner critic, lean into the discomfort, buffering, processing your emotions, holding space. And we do our best to explain what we mean when we use these phrases. We also emphasize the importance of taking our thoughts captive by analyzing our thoughts and choosing what to think on purpose. And I don't know about you, Lisa and Angela, but as I've been paying more attention to my thoughts, I've also started being more curious about the words I say. So our words matter, and I've been working on learning to communicate more clearly. In my curiosity around this, I'll catch myself using phrases that just roll off the tongue. And I stop to consider, what does that even mean? Like, what did I just say? So I thought it would be a fun conversation to have here with the two of you. Do you find yourselves doing that too? Catching yourself saying phrases and then maybe somebody saying, what are you talking about?
Absolutely.
Yes, especially with the younger generation. They'll kind of give me a look like, what? What does that mean?
Right?
Yeah.
So many of the phrases we'll talk about today are considered idioms. And if you don't know, an idiom is a phrase or expression where the meaning cannot be understood from the literal definition of the individual words. These are most likely phrases we hear in everyday life. Maybe we grew up hearing our parents say them, and we just assume we know what they mean, and we assume others know what they mean when we say them as well. So here's a few fun examples. Bite the bullet. Have you guys used that one or heard that one?
Absolutely, yep.
So it means to face something difficult, right? The origin of it is before anesthesia, patients would literally bite on a bullet during surgery to cope with the pain. Can you even imagine?
No, give me the bottle of whiskey. I'll take the whiskey, not the bullet.
Well, it didn't specifically say if you got the
Yes.
drink of whiskey and then you got to bite the bullet, but it gives new meaning to that phrase, to bite the bullet. How about break the ice? So what does that generally mean? Lisa, what does it generally mean when we say break the ice or have an icebreaker?
Just to get the conversation going. Start with something that kind of is easy to get everybody to kind of lighten the mood and just common ground type of thing.
Yes, perfectly said. So the origin of that I found when I did all my Google searching in
I'm
preparation for
scared now.
today is so ships in the sea were sent to break ice in the water so other ships could pass, basically clearing the way. I did not know that. So to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Angela, have you heard this one? Do you say this one?
I mean, I'm sure I've said this. I'm just picturing cowboy boots and, pull yourself together, get up on your feet, keep going, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Put your big girl panties on.
Exactly.
Yes. So be self-sufficient, right? So originally, this meant something impossible because you can't physically lift yourself up by pulling on your bootstraps. So,
Interesting.
and then the meaning later shifted to mean self-reliance. So to turn a blind eye, I thought this was really interesting. We all realize that means to ignore something deliberately on purpose. And here's a little history lesson for you today. This phrase is strongly associated with Horatio Nelson, a famous British admiral. At the Battle of Copenhagen, Nelson was ordered to withdraw. According to accounts, he put a telescope to his blind eye and said he couldn't see the signal, and then continued fighting and won. So he literally looked through the telescope with an eye that he could not see out of. Who knew? Have either of you heard that before?
No.
No, but I have other thoughts now about turned a blind eye that it add in a lot of other sarcasm, like screw you, I'm not gonna do I'm gonna do
I'll
my
show
own
you.
Yep.
That's kind of what he did. He
Yeah.
had the idea he wanted to do what he was going to do. So he
Yep.
didn't care what anybody else told him to do, right? So as I'm going through some of these, I'm thinking our first language is English. But if English is not your first language, and the English language is already really difficult to learn and keep track of, I think. I wonder how much more challenging it is for someone who doesn't have English as their first language. And Angela, when I was mentioning that in the Marcos, you said you had a funny story because you have friends that don't speak English as their first
I
language.
do.
I'd love for you to share it with us because you
Okay.
haven't told us. So we're hearing
I
this for the
know.
first time too.
So, okay, in 2001, we went to Korea to adopt our twins. And at the time, our pastor was Korean. Him and his wife were Korean. So we took his wife with us to Korea. And she was sort of our tour guide, our translator. She was awesome to travel with. And also, we were bringing twin babies home. So she was very helpful with all the things. So when we were in Korea, we got to spend time with her family. And we actually got to go to the home of her, I think it was her aunt and uncle's home. And we got our girls for keeps on my birthday. So they had prepared this huge birthday party for me, and all of the family, all of the extended family was there. Well, in Korea, everything has a protocol. Everything is very proper. There's a lot of manners, and you just have to kind of be, careful all the time. Like, take your shoes off, sit here, don't sit there, watch what you say, all the things, right? It's just very culturally proper to do certain things. So we had to learn all of that when we went. So we're in this house. It was an apartment actually, and we had the new babies with us, and we're trying to do everything right. And I was in the kitchen with the women and just praying the babies didn't cry the whole time. And Jim was in the living room with the men, and her uncle was a professor at a university in Seoul. And I can't remember if he was an English professor or if he was just learning English, but he was very interested in the English language. And so he looked at Jim and he said, with broken English, he said, "Can I ask you some questions?" And Jim was like, "Absolutely." So he pulls one of those little Mead notebooks that are super small, and they have the spiral bound at the top, and you can just flip over the tiny little pages. He pulls one of those out of his pocket, and he flips to a page, and he looks at it, and he looks at Jim and he says, "What this mean? Check your fly. And Jim's like trying to be all proper, right? And he's like, how do I like with sign language kind of show like what is check your fly? So Jim's like, okay, he stands up, shows him. And all the men's faces were like, oh.
That is hilarious. Be careful what you ask for, right?
Yes,
He's like, can I ask you a question? Oh,
it was so funny. But Jim rolled with it. You know, he didn't care. He thought it was hilarious. So.
Oh, the English language. Oh, they got a lesson that day in an idiom, right?
Yep, he
Well, not
did.
even in an idiom. That's just, I guess it is though, because it doesn't necessarily mean that's a zipper, not a fly, right?
Yeah.
Like, who would know? Oh, so funny. Well, I didn't have that one on my list today, but that was hilarious. Let's keep going here. So, let the cat out of the bag. Lisa, what does that generally mean when we say, don't let the cat out of the bag?
You're asking these questions. The very first thing that comes to me is like another idiom. So you just said, don't let the cat out of the bag. And I'm like, don't spill the beans.
Don't tell a secret.
Yeah, like that doesn't really help you with the definition. So don't let the cat out of the bag. More what Angela said, like, don't tell anybody what is in the bag. The cat is the thing. Don't tell anything. Don't tell anybody about the cat. That's kind of what that
revealing
means.
a secret, right?
Yeah.
So the origin of that one, I thought this was interesting. So in the market, a dishonest seller would swap pigs for cats in the bag. So if you thought you were buying a pig, they would put a cat in there. And then when you opened the bag later, you'd reveal the cat and it would expose that you had been swindled by the seller at the market. No clue that that's where that came from. And yet, how often do we say it? Don't let the cat out of the bag. How many of us are going to markets buying pigs only to get a cat in our sack? Like, what?
Oh
And yet we
gosh.
use it like it's verbiage that everybody understands. So interesting.
Oh.
So the phrase burn the midnight oil, I think we all understand that means you're working late into the night. And that origin isn't super surprising. It refers to oil lamps that were used before electricity. So you were literally burning oil at midnight, which I'm guessing now that I think about that, I wonder how expensive oil was and did you want to conserve it? And so burning the midnight oil was maybe something you didn't want to do because you might not have enough for when you did need it.
Kind of with Lisa too. Like as soon as you said that, more idioms popped up, like burning the candle at both ends. Kind of the same thing, right?
Yes, also not on my list. Okay, here's the thing, ladies. When I was researching, I started with a list of idioms that I hear all the time. And then I asked my husband and my daughter, and we had a really long list. And then I went to the internet. There are a lot of these phrases out there. It was hard to pare it down today. So the phrase under the weather, people use this all the time.
I just heard it the other day in Aldi. I was checking out and I heard two men talking at another checkout and they knew each other from somewhere. Hey, how you doing? How are you? And the guy goes, I'm under the weather. I was like, okay, good to know. I'll not touch your cart.
Right. I'll back farther away this time. Do either of you know the actual meaning?
Nope.
You've got me curious.
I didn't either, but I use it all the time. So sailors who felt sick went below deck, away from the weather. So I'm guessing if the weather was causing the waves to be more tumultuous and they started to not feel well, going under the deck would maybe help. Then maybe they would lie down or something. But yeah, the term under the weather is from sailors who felt sick at sea and they had to go below deck. So there you go. Okay, the phrase don't beat a dead horse.
I actually do say this one.
And what does it mean? When you say it, what is the meaning that you are putting behind it?
Well, I've been known to say things a few times over and over and over and over and over. And yeah, I'm sure that horse was beat, dead, and buried by the time I got done teaching my wonderful lesson.
Very relatable. Very relatable. Yes. So the meaning is to stop wasting time or effort on something that's already been decided, resolved, or can't be changed. You're continuing an argument or action that no longer has any point.
Banging your head
So
on the wall.
There's another one. So the origin to this, here's another little history lesson for you. This idiom dates back to the 18th and 19th century when horses were commonly used for work and transport. If a horse died, no amount of whipping or beating would make it move again. The image is intentionally blunt. Continuing to push something that's already dead is pointless. It became popular in political and public discourse in Britain, famously used by John Bright, whoever that is, in the 1800s during debates, which helped cement it in everyday English. Super interesting. Okay, Lisa, this is one that you suggested in the Marcos when I suggested this topic for today. My dogs are barking, or my dogs are howling. Can you explain what you mean by that in case the listeners are like, you're what? Or whating?
Okay, so not like my literal pet dog, but I think when I brought it up in the Marcos, it was something that my husband was saying to me in regards to how his feet were feeling because he had been standing on his feet all day in the garage on a cement floor. So he said, "My dogs are barking." Or my
I think
dogs
you
are
have to say
howling.
barking. I think when you say
Barking?
this, you have to say barking. My
Barking.
dogs are barking.
So the delivery matters with
It
this
matters.
one.
Yep.
Yes. So the meaning is my feet hurt, usually after standing or walking for
Mhm.
a long time.
Yeah.
So the origin, this is American slang that plays on metaphor and humor. So dogs would equal feet. A slang substitution, possibly from rhyming slang or just playful imagery, and barking or howling is referring to like making noise. So if there's pain, that pain can be, quote, noisy.
Right.
So
Yes,
this
he
phrase
was being
likely
noisy.
became, yeah,
He
yeah.
was being-
The phrase likely became popular in the 20th century, especially in working class speech and later through movies, vaudeville, and radio. The idea is that your feet are complaining loudly like noisy dogs.
Oh, the imagery we're going to have after
I
this
know.
podcast.
Right? To give someone the cold shoulder. What does that imply? They gave me
Yeah.
the cold shoulder. What does that mean? What happened?
Yeah. Well, we won't name names. I mean, I picture a literal sort of turning and, kind of a rude way, like not being warm, friendly, kind,
Yeah. There's
turning
definitely
away.
facial mannerisms happening.
Yeah.
All the things. Yeah.
You ever go in for a hug and someone gives you the shoulder hug? Yeah. Kind of visualizing the gentle pat on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Or you see somebody in the store and
They duck you.
and they you know they saw you.
Yeah.
And they literally turn with their shoulder.
So the feeling of being rejected or ignored, right?
Yes.
There you go.
I had
Doesn't
no
mean
idea. No, I had no idea the origin. This is so interesting. The idea was that a host would serve a guest a cold shoulder of meat instead of a hot, fresh meal as a signal that they weren't welcome anymore. Would never have guessed that, but it makes sense. It was like this nonchalant way of being like, yep, time for you to go. So instead of saying you're not welcome here anymore, you're just going to serve cold food. I don't know. It doesn't say when this happened.
Again, that leads to other idioms. Read the room. Read between the lines.
So true.
Oh
So my
my
husband
gosh.
says this one all the time. Go the whole 9 yards. Or in his conversation and his whatever he's telling me, he'll say, the whole nine. So that's how this came up. I'm like, what does that even mean? So the meaning is to go all the way. And the origin actually was uncertain. One theory links it to World War II machine gun belts, which was 9 yards of ammo. And that's the most popular theory, but there's no actual evidence tying it to that phrase. And I looked this one up a couple of different times to see. I asked ChatGPT, is there another meaning? What is the other meaning? And this was really the only one that was commonly thought of. So I thought that was interesting. I thought it was like a football term because my
Yeah, me
husband loves
too.
football and he says it all the time. So, listeners, if I do not have this one right and you know the true origin and meaning of go the whole 9 yards, please send me a message. I'd be super curious to hear. Skeletons in the closet. This one's very familiar. Wouldn't you agree?
Who
I'm
doesn't have
scared.
them? Who doesn't have them?
What
I'm
does it mean? What do you
scared.
think it means when we say there's skeleton or do you have skeletons in your closet? Everybody has skeletons in their closet. What is that implying? What are we saying?
Something in your past that you don't want to come out.
The hidden secret,
Yeah.
right? So this came from the idea that medical schools or grave robbers hid skeletons illegally. Apparently, this is historically true. So actual skeletons were hid. I don't know why. I didn't go deeper on that one, but there were actual skeletons hidden somewhere. I told you,
Okay.
some of these are a little dark, a little weird.
Wow.
If we say something costs an arm and a leg, we mean it's very expensive, right? Is that generally what we think? So the origin of this one also is kind of uncertain, but it could be possibly from the high cost, quotes, of limbs lost in war, or exaggerated artistic pricing. Like portraits, when they used to paint your portrait, they would charge extra if you wanted your limbs included in the painting.
Oh, which is why you would just have a bust.
Maybe it was too expensive to include those arms.
Couldn't afford the whole bod.
These are fun.
That'll cost you.
Okay, the proof is in the pudding. Do you guys hear this one? This is one that I heard myself saying, and my daughter was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
So,
really know.
I mean, I'm guessing it originates from making pudding if it sets up, if the pudding sets up, but you would say it like evidence. There's evidence.
Sure. Originally, the term was, or the phrase was, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So it's actually been shortened to the proof is in the pudding. To proof means to test. You had to eat it to know if it was good. So yeah, testing. But I like what you were saying, Angela. Yeah, does it stand up? Does it thicken? Is there proof there? So, okay, I really, really like this one. Watch your P's and Q's. Have you guys heard anyone say that or have you ever said it?
Mind your P's and Q's. That I've heard. Mind your P's and Q's.
I've heard it. I have no clue.
So generally it means to mind your manners,
That's right.
right? So my husband actually knew the meaning of this before I looked it up. So the idea is that P's and Q's stands for pints and quarts. So the more you drink, the more you're not actually being very kind or appropriate. So if somebody is told to watch your P's and Q's, they're saying, watch how much you're drinking because you're getting a little out of line.
My word. I never would have guessed that. That's funny.
Isn't that fun? There's also another meaning behind it from printing and learning where like the P's and the Q's were easily confused in like typesetting because they look very similar if they don't have the little curly Q on it. But I like the bar scene definition a little bit better.
And I always picture, old fashioned school teachers saying that, mind your P's and Q's, but to think that it was like bar lingo is hilarious.
I think of old guys in an Irish pub. Watch your
Yeah.
P's and Q's. Okay, let's skip down a little bit here. Not my cup of tea. Angela, I think you've said this a few times in the
I
Marcos.
have. Not my style, not my preference. I don't care for it. And I have no idea of the origin.
So this just simply comes from British tea culture. If you don't like tea, it's simply not for you. And I can see that. I think you either like tea or you don't. I don't think there's really an in between. You really embrace it or you just don't like it. So, nothing too interesting there. But again, if English is not your first language, you might be like, where's the tea? What are they talking about? I don't see any cups here, right? Lisa, you brought this one up when we were talking the Marcos. I could care less. Tell
Yes.
me about this one.
So this one is one of those phrases you hear people say, and in actuality, I think the origin, you'll be able to tell me, is British, meaning I couldn't care less, but we dropped the an apostrophe, like we dropped the not part. And so we say, I could care less, when if you think about it, it really means you have more cares to give. If you say it that way, when somebody's saying, oh, I could care less, they're meaning, I don't care what you have to say anymore. But when you say it without the I could not care less, you're actually saying, I kind of have some more cares I could give you. So sometimes when I hear people saying it, again, it's a whole facial mannerism thing. And I giggle to myself because I'm like, well, actually, the way you just said that means you have more to give, but clearly you do not.
And it's another phrase that just rolls off the tongue. You hear people say it all the time. I could care less. So the origin is actually it's just a logical twist. So the original phrase is I couldn't care less, like you said, which makes literal sense.
Yes.
I could care less likely emerged in American English as a sarcastic or ironic version. So just like you said. But again, words matter. So are you really saying you could care more or do you really not care at all?
Yeah.
Good to notice, right? Okay, so there were a few faith-based phrases that also came up as I was thinking about this podcast. And I thought it might be good to go over a couple of them because they were very interesting to me. So we've heard this one before, money is the root of all evil, which basically the meaning is money causes wrongdoing. But this is actually a misquote. The original biblical line is the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, and that's from 1 Timothy 6:10. So this is widely misquoted and it changes the meaning completely. What about the term good grief? Besides the Charlie Brown comics,
Which I
which I think
love.
made it very popular. Do you say this or do you hear people saying this?
I say it. And yeah, I have no idea where it came from, but good grief. I guess you're going to tell us.
So it's basically a softened version of stronger religious exclamations like good God made more socially acceptable over time. And of course, Charlie Brown in Peanuts comics made it popular. You can just see him say, "Oh, good grief."
Love it.
So this is one I heard growing up a lot, especially I have some aunts that like to say this. For Pete's sake, or for the love of Pete. Did you ladies hear this one growing up?
For Pete's sake, yes, but for the love of Pete, no. Is that a Minnesota thing?
It might be. It might just be my family thing. I don't know. It's just a mild exclamation of frustration, right? And it's a softened substitute for religious expressions. So Pete likely stands for Saint Peter. That's all I could get on it. Again, if anybody would like to expand my knowledge on that one, I'd love to hear more about it.
I feel like I had great aunts that said, for Pete's sakes. And then instead of for the love of Pete, they said for the love of everything holy. And then they fill in, which means what you were just describing, right? And there is a phrase I have not heard in, I don't know, 40 years. Yeah.
Wow.
How about by the skin of your teeth? What does that mean if we say by the skin of your teeth? Which again makes no sense at all, but what does that
Just
mean
barely
when we
got
say
by,
this?
just barely made it through.
The
Just,
criminal on the cross next to Jesus got to heaven by the skin on his teeth.
Oh, you're so right. Well, did you know that this is actually in the book of Job? It's actually quoted in Job 19, verse 20. In this verse, Job describes his extreme emaciation and suffering, stating, "My bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth." So, yeah, teeth don't have skin, and this emphasizes how close the escape was. I did not know that that was a
That's always
biblical
going to stand
reference.
out to me now.
We just have one more here. To go the extra mile. What does that mean when we say to go the extra mile?
means to pull your bootstraps up and go to the check.
Go farther than you planned to go. Go over and above.
Yeah, do more than what's required, right?
Yeah.
So this is actually from a teaching attributed to Jesus about Roman law requiring people to carry soldiers' gear for 1 mile. And actually, if you have watched The Chosen, there's an amazing scene in one of the episodes where the Roman soldiers stop Jesus and the disciples and give them all their gear and have them wear all their heavy helmets and everything because they were required by law. They had to carry the Roman soldiers' gear for 1 mile. They get there, everybody starts taking off their gear, and Jesus says, "No, we're going another mile," to show kindness. And then at the end of the scene, I'm totally ruining this for anybody who hasn't seen The Chosen, but it's
Yeah,
such a good
thanks.
scene. It's such a good scene. At the end of that extra mile, the Romans actually start taking back their gear from Jesus and his disciples because they saw how difficult that was for them and they saw their kindness. So I thought that was beautiful. So when you say to go the extra mile, I think of Jesus asking us to continue to show kindness even beyond what's required.
Love it.
Well, this has been super fun. Are there any other idioms that either of you had in mind today that we didn't discuss from the list that you're just dying to share or you're wondering about? We could do a quick Google search.
I think this would be like a 2-hour special if
Yes.
we were to go over all the idioms that the more you talk and the more you ask questions, the more idioms that come to my front and center. I'm like, oh, there's another one. Here's
Yeah.
another one.
Like I was just thinking this morning, wild horses couldn't keep me away. And I thought, whoa, that's an idiom.
But none of us even have horses. Like, what are we talking about? Where are the
know.
horses coming from, right? Super interesting to just notice our words and be curious about them. And as we said in our technology episodes, we all have little computers in our back pocket. So if you do catch yourself saying something, you're wondering, what did I just say? And what is the origin of that phrase? Google it. You might be surprised. So we all speak without thinking at times. It's easy to get into the habit of using phrases like the ones we mentioned today. And this fun conversation is just a little reminder to all of us that our words actually do matter. The words we speak can shape how we see ourselves, our struggles, and even God. How we communicate affects our relationships. And the encouragement from today's conversation is to stay curious about the thoughts we think, stay curious about the words we say. If you're like me, you might need the reminder to have fun with it and not take yourself too seriously when you catch yourself saying some of these phrases. Sometimes a silly phrase or an idiom can literally break the ice in the best way and bring a spark of joy to your day. Until next Tuesday, stay curious, loungers. Angela and Lisa, I'm looking forward to catching each other saying some of these phrases and more in the Marcos later today. Have a blessed day, friends.